Right, hello, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, today I want to be talking about the. It's not a new film, but it's not massively old either. It's the original Saw film, which came out in 2004 and was one of the best horror films I've ever seen. And I will talk about it in this video, why I think it kind of changed the way that they made films. So to start off with, I know that quite a few people don't like the first Saw because they might have seen the sequels first or something. And the sequels are like ultra gory, not really many characters you care about, and the story isn't great. And then you watch this one, which is a lot slower, a lot more less from the traps. You never actually really see any of the violence apart from in one scene towards the end. But in this film, I much preferred the fact that it actually I feel like they tried more. I feel like the sequels kind of went to a bit too much extreme. If it had like a reason for it and they were trying to make them be disturbed about characters you cared about, then fine. But to be honest, they just kind of threw blood and gore on the screen for no real reason. If the characters were more likable, or I even cared about them slightly, then maybe it would have more of an impact that the first Saw did. So the first Saw, if you've heard about the franchise and you think it's like ultra violent, I do realise that all of them are 18s, but this one is like the least. And it's not actually that bad in terms of controversy. I understand that some of the traps and ideologies towards the film and the overall premise and atmosphere of the film is very dark and disturbing. But you never actually see any of the traps do anything apart from one scene. You always either the camera either cuts away or it shows you the after effect, something like that. You never actually see it happen to them. Which I preferred. I liked, the imagination side of it, and there were quite a few creepy parts in this film. For example, when Adam is going around his house with the camera and he's flicking the light on. That part was really intense and creepy with the pig guy in his house. And this film not only changed the way that I felt about horror films, because the horror films I'd seen previously had been like these kind of ridiculous, violent, unnecessarily violent, gratuitous violence that didn't really have an impact. Whereas this film, it kind of used your imagination, it used story, it used characters, and it used just great scenes to basically give this overall effect. And it was the first one that kind of changed my ideas of horror films from this kind of cashed out genre of terrible films to one that has really good films in it. And I realised that the critics don't like this film that much. It's got like 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience is really high. It's like 84, which is just 1% below 28 Days Later. And both films are great, but I prefer this one because I just felt like I could kind of sympathise with the characters more. When you watch this film, you kind of feel like, how would you react in this situation? How would you do what Adam or Lawrence is doing in the situation? And it's not all in one room. I do realise the majority of the film takes place in one room, but I never found it boring because they kept on going back in the past and telling you the reasons behind the characters being put there. And Jigsaw also had a really good kind of idea to why he's doing this in this film. He's trying to teach them a lesson. He's trying to make them value life because of his own illness. So definitely the best in the franchise. Probably in my top 5 favourite horror films ever. Again, because of the imagination side and the fact that it doesn't really show you what happens. And the intensity in this film is ridiculous. There's a scene where a woman called Amanda has a reverse bear trap on her head, and it's probably the most iconic trap in the series, I'd say. And whereas a bear trap, closes, this one opens, and it kind of gets placed in her mouth and on her head, and she does escape, which is because it shows you what happens on this like doll thing. And again, that doll, rather than be shown on a real person, this doll just made it 10 times worse because it full on destroys this doll's head. And when she escapes, it's so relieved for this character. And you know that it hasn't worked before because that wasn't the first trap you see. You see the barbed wire scene first. So there's not that many traps in this film. I'd say about 5, I think. There's the bear trap, the barbed wire, the lighter scene, there's the part with the drills, and there's also kind of the whole big premise where they're 2 guys in a room. And I'd say the most interesting was the bear trap one, and the best motivated one was the barbed wire one. That's because the barbed wire one, although I didn't enjoy the trap that much, because not only do you not see it, which again kind of contradicts it, but I didn't really mind that. I didn't like the whole... It was just really simple. All the other ones have like choices to do, whereas this one, it was literally that he forced him to run through the barbed wire. There was no other way of escaping. Although you can kind of agree with the other ones, but this one was just kind of, you either move or you die. And the reason for him to do that with the whole self-harm thing was a really kind of interesting perception of the entire idea. The guy in the trap has cut his wrist before, and Jigsaw wants to test, did he want to die, or was it just for, attention? So he puts him in a trap where there's a bunch of barbed wire behind him, and he has to run through to get to the exit, or else in 2 hours, Jigsaw will come down and kill him. And it's the whole idea that he wants to see, did he want to kill himself, or was it for attention? And that idea that Jigsaw isn't just doing it for fun, he's actually trying to teach them a lesson, kind of made the character more, I don't know, malevolent, if that's even a word, malevolent. It makes it creepy, it makes it more interesting than just seeing, characters get killed for no other reason. And then, although the other traps didn't have the same kind of reasoning, it was just kind of the Amanda did drugs, then she gets a bear trap on her head. And I can't remember the guy with the lighter, what his reason for, although that trap was really kind of innovative, and it was the most complex of them all. I can't remember the reasoning, so I can't really talk about that much. And then the drill one, again, wasn't a reason for it. They were just trying to do it to see if the police could get there in time, and that never actually happened. So although it would have been the most violent in the thingy, it never actually shows you. Danny Glover in this film was really good. I wouldn't say it's his best role. I still think Lethal Weapon's his best, but he did do a really good job in this role as the police detective whose partner's been killed by Jigsaw, and now he wants revenge, and it's showing his deranged journey from seeing his partner get killed to him trying to track down Jigsaw all the way through the end. So I liked his character. I don't think it was his best performance because he just kind of, I don't know, when he was going deranged, although the character arc was cool and it was kind of cool to see his acting, it wasn't the best I've ever seen. I saw him in better films like Lethal Weapon and things like that. So although he wasn't the best, there was a lot of characters that did really well. Now, I know that people don't like Adam or Lawrence's acting in this film. Lawrence I thought was shocking, but Adam, I really liked his acting. I think Lawrence did okay for the most part. It was just at the end when he'd lost his leg, he was really kind of terrible acting. He was overacting, let's put it like that. I don't think he'd be talking as much or stuttering like he did in the film. Whereas Adams kept consistently good all the way throughout the film. His character was so funny. I mentioned this in the Paranormal Activity review. Him and Mika from Paranormal Activity are the funniest characters from horror films ever. Adam was just consistently just throwing jokes and making kind of fun of the whole situation whilst being serious at certain parts. And I actually liked his acting. I thought a lot of people didn't, but his character and the way he portrayed it, I thought did really well. So he was great. Jigsaw, you never actually really see him until the very end of the film. You think it's this other guy, but it isn't. It's the this is the main spoiler. I know I've spoiled quite a bit already. I should just take for granted, unless I put non-spoiler at the start of the review, it will be a spoiler review. And this character, who is Jigsaw, isn't Jigsaw. The Jigsaw is the guy in the middle of the floor with the bullet hole in his head with a gun, with all the blood around him. And that was one of the coolest twists to a horror film ever. And the way that they shot the final scene was so amazing. It's the most impactful ending since Seven, I think. And Scarface had a great ending, but this ending was just so eerie. The way that Adam is lying on the floor, he's just been shot, Lawrence has crawled out of the room, and you can just see, he's out of focus as well, Jigsaw in the background. You just see him get up and pull the thing off, and he's stretching in the background. That idea that he was there all the way along, not only were you mind blown, but you see Adam slowly turn, and the way that he kind of limps out of the room and slams the door shut was just so amazing because of the way that they shot it, with Adam's face kind of being in the foreground and that in the background. And the way that Adam started screaming and putting his hand towards the door continued throughout the credits for the first 10 seconds was so creepy. Whilst the credits were running, you could still hear Adam screaming in the background. And not only was it probably the best horror movie ending, but one of the best endings I've ever seen because of its impact. There's some films that I watch that don't have the best impactful ending, like 28 Days Later, I think could have had a better ending. I've seen both endings, the alternate and the original, but I would have liked that film to have ended as soon as the guy gets dragged away, rather than the car hit the fence. But this film had the perfect ending for, I think, a perfect film. I had no issues with the film whatsoever, apart from Lawrence's acting right at the end. But other than that, everything else made up for it. If you haven't seen Saw, but you think it's going to be too gory or violent, seriously, it's not that bad. There's only one scene where you see Lawrence saw his leg off. I know it sounds really bad, but it honestly isn't as bad. Especially the sequels are a lot worse. So, have you seen Saw? What did you think? Did you prefer this one to the sequels? If not, leave a comment down below, let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video.